Time at the Etihad Stadium, Manchester City bounced back once again under Pep Guardiola with a 3-1 win over Brighton, although it wasn't all that smooth sailing. Here to get into all of that, as you can see to my left, I've got Joleon Lescott, I've got Steve Howey, and of course I've got big Andy Morrison. Steve, I'll start with you. You know, you said, we were saying it at half-time, you know, if we get that third goal, then it's going to be tough for Brighton, but it was them that scored. Not at our free-flowing best today, but got the result.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't win every game perfectly, and it was difficult because I thought Brighton set up really well. First 20 minutes of the first half, and then the second half, you know, they've obviously gone in. The managers must have sort of said to them, "Listen, lads, we've got nothing to lose here. Let's, you know, get at them. Can we cause them problems?" And they did do that. Obviously, there was a chance for Mahrez, which, to be fair, the goalkeeper makes a good save. I don't think you can really criticise Mahrez. It's a decent contact. Goalkeeper makes a save, then they go down the other end with the impressive Trossard, who has been decent all afternoon, and he gets the goal. It moves a little bit, but will Ederson be a little bit disappointed? Possibly, but he does hit it with some pace. And then the team's kind of panicking a little bit. You know, they've actually got quite a bit of possession. Don't really create anything clear cut, but ultimately, you know, the cream comes to the top, and obviously with De Bruyne, I mean, what a finish. Just gets it out of his foot, whips it across the goalkeeper. Absolutely no chance. Unbelievable.
We got man of the match as well today here in the Etihad Stadium. Beginning with the first change, which happened right at the start of the second half, the young fullback Lamptey came on for Lallana, and that seemed to really change the way Brighton were playing. What was it that Lamptey did that kind of, changed things for Brighton and kind of helped them really grow into the game?
It starts asking a bigger question of Cancelo. How honest are you going to be going the other way?
Yeah.
You know, starts changing the dynamics and the mentality of and the way the flow of the game. The key for me was when they went to a 4. They actually went to a back 4 where Webster come from left-sided centre-half and went right-sided centre-half, and that's where they started causing us problems. And they managed to get out on numerous occasions, and credit to Brighton. You know, we're here, like, you know, obviously looking at it from a City point of view, but Brighton were terrific. You know, they moved the ball well. I thought the second half they might have tried to sat in a bit deeper, but they didn't. They stayed brave. They kept coming, and ironically, that the system and the way they changed was the first time that Caicedo was unable, because when the centre-half split as in a 2, Caicedo dropped in between them, and that gave De Bruyne just enough time to get the ball out of his feet. The first time in the game, because Caicedo took care of him in the final third, continued throughout the game, latched on and stopped him. When the dynamics of the game changed and then he found the space, that's when he had the opportunity, and you'll see Caicedo just tries to get to him and he can't quite make it up, and that's the brilliance of De Bruyne.
Yeah, it is. I mean, as we know, you don't want to give him space and time on the edge of the box there. We'll come to that in a second. Joleon and Steve, you said there for their goal, the way the Mahrez chance, do you think City could have done anything to stop that before? And as you said, Ederson probably a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, there's always something you can do. There's always something from a defensive point of view to prevent a goal or to prevent an opportunity. But listen, like lads are saying, it's Brighton had less to lose at that point. Obviously, they were playing with a bit more freedom. You kind of do when you're behind.
Yes.
Especially here, you kind of realise, well, we're going to have to get into something now because these could end up 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And we've seen teams come here and just capitulate when it is to. But fair play to Brighton, they give a good go at themselves, and they tweaked. The manager obviously has a good understanding of what his team needs, because he made changes and he changed the dynamics of their game and obviously allowed them to be free-flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. Then, of course, it was then needed a reaction from City. Brighton pushing into the game, and Andy, you said it, but Steve, I mean, the finish from Kevin De Bruyne is, I mean, we've seen so many of them now, world-class.
Well, he is. I mean, he is world-class. I mean, you're not third in the Ballon d'Or for nothing, and he could have been higher. But it was interesting because we were speaking before the game about centre-halves, and obviously Mark and Erling Haaland. Centre-halves are guilty if the ball's coming down the wing of looking at the winger and not knowing where the centre-forward is. This was a prime example for Caicedo. He does exactly the same as Andy said. He kind of looked after De Bruyne in most of the game. But just on this one occasion, if you look at him, he's actually looking across, and he does know Kevin De Bruyne is just here.
Pulled off him. Yeah.
And he's just pulled off him. By the time the ball goes there, he tries to engage him, but he pulls the ball away from him, further away from him, hits it with his right foot, across him, across the goalkeeper. I mean, soon as I was obviously watching it from me, as soon as it left his foot, we said, it's in. and of course it just rattles the net. But I mean, top quality finish, and it just calmed everything down because, as I said, they were kind of knocking on the door at that particular time as well.
I mean, it felt that way, didn't it? And I think credit to Brighton as well, and a great turnout from the Brighton away fans as well. It has to be said. But you know, they were pushing. I mean, I remember I turned to my dad saying they could get an equaliser.
Yeah, it's not something that we very often have to do and manage a game, and see it through and sit back in. But Haaland got pushed back. They got themselves back into a shape. And as Steve just said, they never really opened us up, but they recycled it. They managed to pin us in like we do to teams. So they kept recycling the ball coming back out. We cleared because of the depth that we were in, and they forced us back. But they didn't really cut us open. But had to manage that, and I thought we managed it and came through. And then you're talking about Haaland with the 2 goals. The first goal is world class, the first goal he scores, and then De Bruyne. Them key moments when you want your player in these sort of situations to step up, and that is the difference.
Yeah, and it's fine margins, isn't it?
It's fine margins. Joleon spoke about it in the first half. Very fine margins last week between. No, that margin today was on our side with that quality in them 2 moments from 2 world-class players.
Absolutely. Cole Palmer coming on in the 75th minute, and I turned to my dad as well. I was saying, great that for him, because the game wasn't. It didn't feel it was one of them substitutions where you come in on when the game's done. So for Cole, that must have felt great. 15 minutes, but still the responsibility.
Yeah, and that's it. It's all learning. It's all the process in his development. His regards to learning how to manage games, and most of his appearances have been when it's been comfortable. So it's free for him, but that wasn't the case. It was still tight. There was still a lot of kind of responsibility to do defensively as well. So yeah, it's all understanding and development for him. So the more minutes you get in this team, that you can only benefit.
Absolutely. Looking at Brighton, just a quick word on them, because we were said going into the game, I think the results maybe aren't a fair tell of how impressive they've been in games. How impressed were you with them today to come to the Etihad and kind of do what we don't see teams do very much, really, Steve?
I like them as a football team. I think the manager's got a good idea of how he wants his teams to play. We've heard about the team that he's had in the past. They've got some good players, Brighton, and basically for me, players that I don't think are rated what they should be. You've got Lallana, but we all know how good Lallana is. He's a good little player. He gets the ball and gives it in movement. But Trossard, Gross, you look at Welbeck, Marsh, the centre half, big dunk. Is it Webster? The other one.
Webster.
Got some good players. The goalkeeper's comfortable. He makes good saves. He's good with his feet. Is it Lamptey who came on as well? Was changing the game a little bit. Decent players. Casido, who we've talked about, was he 20, 21, something like that?
Yeah.
Colombian. Fantastic player. Brighton's a team where, a while ago it used to be Southampton that were churning out these players that all of a sudden went to big clubs for big money. They've got some good quality players here, and so it's no surprise to me. After seeing them against Manchester United the first game of the season, after seeing them against Liverpool, some performances maybe they haven't hit the heights that they should. But if they play like that this season, they're going to finish pretty strongly and finish, pretty high in the league.
Absolutely, and then for City on the other side of that, now we've done that bounce back, Andy, and now it's just, I think, trying to go on another run, then, isn't it, of winning games? Yeah,
I mean, wherever it came, I think it's 22 games. So not very often are you talking about a bounce back from City. But they produced today. They produced last week. And if the finishing's right and it's our day, we'll win games of football. And it's just relentless. It goes again now, Dortmund, and then you're the weekend, and it's just non-stop. And I just think that's the mentality of players at this level, to be able to churn that out game after game after game. I think the drive has to be from the manager. The manager has to be the person that keeps that so relentless, and consistently turning out performances like they did today.
Having been a manager, Andy, how difficult is it as the manager to sustain that and keep them going?
It's difficult, but you've got they're not just footballers anymore. They're a mindset continually week. They're not saying they're programmed and they're robots, but in their football life, it's so structured and they're ready to go again, and they know what the next game that's coming. Not that they'll ever look at the next game. But you've got a squad where you're able to mix it a little bit, and you're bringing in a player who is equally as good as the one that is resting rather than being left out. And the squad depth is so strong. But for me, my admiration comes from the because it was never about physical for me. It was all about mental, preparing yourself mentally for that next game. When you've got a Champions League game, and then you're Liverpool, you come to Brighton, you're going to Dortmund, to do it again and again and again and again, the strength of the mind must be incredibly strong.
It really, really is. You mentioned it there, Andy. Dortmund is next. Now, we are qualified in the group. I think we're on 10 points, Dortmund on 7. So, I mean, we always want to try and go top of the group. But how can you see it going out? Obviously, Dortmund away, difficult fixture.
Yeah, very difficult. Played there and experienced that crowd. Exciting. But again, it could be the Haaland show. They'll be obviously wanting to kind of welcome him for a certain part of the pre-game ritual. But in regards to the outcome, I see us winning, but I don't see it being easy because it's a tough place to go. It has European experience, that stadium, them fans, that counts, especially in the Champions League. So, yeah, I'm confident that we win the game and confirm top of the group, but I don't think it'll be easy.
No, this is probably not a City-centred question, but it's kind of an England-centred question. Young Jude Bellingham is being talked about a lot, World Cup, and now he's captain in the side. I don't think he's even 20 yet, is he? I mean, how impressive is he? And when I think, actually, when we've met them in the Champions League over the last couple of seasons, he's turned up. He's been the difference.
But I think he's the first teenager to score in in all the group games.
Wow.
He scored in all the group games so far, so he's an exceptional talent. But and he was talking then about mindset. He has the mindset to be the very best.
Yeah.
I don't think he's surprising himself in how he's performing because he trains for this, he prepares for this, knowing some of his family members being from Birmingham. So I'm not surprised. He's been a talent. He's been like a Phil Foden in regards to, there's a kid at Birmingham, his name's Jude Bellingham, and you see him, you're like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Kind of thing. So in terms of his output in games, sensational.
Phenomenal. And then obviously for England as well. I mean, you could say he'd be pushing for a start, maybe.
I think he does start. I think he was probably competing with Calvin Phillips, and Calvin not being fit. I think that gives him an opportunity, but he's performing in the Champions League, so and he's not just playing in the Champions League. He's like scoring. Yeah. He's probably what I think he'll in the group team of the group stage. He's one of the top scoring midfielders in the whole competition. So I think that warrants a potential start for
Joleon, would you put him in the same bracket as Haaland, as the phenomenon that he is?
Probably not, because he hasn't done it for the same length of time. But
as a midfielder coming along,
I think I don't see him not doing it for the same length of time, if that makes sense. So by the time he's 22, which is in 3 years, like I see him still performing the way he's performing.
About Haaland as a 19-year-old.
Yes.
Is he in that same?
Yeah,
he is.
I think he might be further along, because I think he's, like, in the greatest respect to Haaland, when he was 19 doing it, you probably still thought it was form. You're not saying that about Jude anymore, are you? You're not saying it's form. You're saying, like, this is how he performs. Yeah. So by the time he's 22 and he's still potentially doing what he's doing, the world is his oyster. And I think he's the most complete midfielder we have. I think he would be able to operate in different positions. Yes. More so than anyone else.
And Andy, I mean, captain in the side as well at that age. I guess that.
And voted by the team. But similar structure to here. It's not like been given. Like they've voted that.
They've chosen him. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so, phenomenal talent. Yeah. I think I watched the game against Dortmund. I thought Dortmund were the best set-up team that I've seen here in many seasons. The way they switched play with the formation, they managed to get out where we press and overload one edge of the pitch. They changed play and got out so many times, and it was the best performance for me. They lost the game because of moments of brilliance again, but I thought all round Dortmund was the best performance I've seen here from a team in a long, long time. So it's going to be a really tough game.
Yes.
On Tuesday night. Make no mistake.
Looking at that game, Steve, we'll probably maybe see a few changes. Do you think, kind of just to freshen it up and try and keep that, the energy levels high?
You would have thought the manager will make some changes. When will Phil Foden start? Gundogan, obviously going back to his old team as well.
Yes,
does Nathan Ake come in, or does he keep with the two lads at the back who we all know is very, very strong? But having said that, Nathan Ake's done brilliant when he's come in. So Stones is obviously back fit now. It'll be interesting to see what the manager does, because, listen, they've got the strength and depth to make the changes, but you don't want to make too many changes because this will be a tough test. As Andy said, when they came here, they were very well organised, very difficult to beat, and of course on their patch, they'll want to make sure that they get the positive result. I mean, we're talking about Jude Bellingham. I mean, that is a prospect if you look at it, and it is scary when you think about you've got somebody that's 19 who's been basically picked from his teammates to be captain. That just goes to show how brilliant he is.
Yes.
So when you've got players like that, as well as the other top players that they have got at Dortmund, it is going to be a tough game. So I don't think the manager will make that many changes. But then again, it's Pep. In all fairness, what he does, you can't really argue with.
Yeah, Pep roulette, isn't it, indeed? Well, listen, gents, that has been an absolute pleasure. I've absolutely loved today. Thank you for your insight. It's always much appreciated. And thank you to all of you guys for watching at home as well. So we'll be back with you for that game against Dortmund. Joining you will be Natalie Pike. Then, of course, we've got Karen Bardsley, Nader Manua and Stephen McInerney. So make sure you're tuned in for that. And then we'll be back at the weekend as well. Massive thank you again to our guests. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Come on, City.